Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brad here, and today I am playing some more Space Engineers. And as you guys can tell, the game itself is back to its old background, and you can even see my crosshair and everything. And that's because the world I was working on in the previous video with the long distance transport ship, I was working on that just before I was about to record, so I saved the world, at least my progress I made. And the game crashed on me, so I booted the game up and went to go back into the world, and the world is now corrupted. So I won't be able to show you guys the progress I made, and I actually did make a lot of progress. The only problem with the thing was the actual ship part was rotating, not the actual parts that were going out of the ship. It was quite an amusing thing to see. But in this video, because I've had to redo my whole Space Engineers game by not reinstalling it, just by verifying the files, I thought I should do an episode about my thoughts on the game currently and the things I'd like to see implemented into Space Engineers itself, and whether or not you guys agree or disagree with some of the things I'm saying. So this won't be a gameplay, this won't be me showing off anything, this will just be me walking around this world. I think this is the Relativity Part 1 puzzle. So I'll just be walking around, floating around here, whilst talking to you guys about, like I said, the current state of the game, my thoughts on the current state, and what some ideas or some things I'd like to see implemented at some time in the future. So right now, the state of the game. Now, one of the main things people are going to say when they jump in here is optimization. Now, I have a decent PC. I guess you would call it a high-end PC. My stats are on my YouTube page, on my About section. The amount of times I've been asked about it, I just put it in there so you guys can see it. Yeah, no, my PC would be classed about high-end. So my PC should easily be able to handle any game easily 60 FPS without question. But this game can drop down to a lot lower. This happens when there is a large number of blocks on the screen, or you're building, like I said, a massive ship, and that can drop your FPS down to anywhere, even 10 FPS. I've even gotten down to 20 as well. I think if I fly over here, my FPS will go down. There we go, there's 37 FPS now, when I was 60 back at the spawn. So that's just an example of some optimization that is needed. And I think that's because for every block it's rendering the vertices that you see, or the deformation that you guys see when you shoot at it, or when you use a rocket or a drill. You'll see that the pieces actually start to deform, and I think that's because when they're not deformed like they are right now, it's still rendering all those vertices inside. So for every block you've got all that deformation that hasn't been done yet, but it's still rendering it there. So I think that is probably one cause of the FPS drops, just for the sake of the amount of blocks, because games such as Minecraft that uses a similar sort of block system, or at least block visual aesthetic, they don't render the insides of blocks as way this game does. So that's where Minecraft is more optimized than this in terms of just block based stuff. Other than that, the game is great for building. I've had so much time. I've spent over 100 hours in this. I think I've spent about 110 now, 120 hours into this game. So I've easily gotten what I paid for it in terms of like worth. And like I said, I've had so much fun. I played single player pretty much for most of the time. I think I played an hour or two of multiplayer with my friends, and that was enjoyable, I have to say. But I did prefer to just sit down, listen to music, relax, build what I wanted, and then I'd show you guys my creations. And that's where a lot of the fun's been for me. But I'm sure multiplayer is, and as I've experienced, it is a lot of fun. It's just that they need to synchronize things a little bit better. There isn't much synchronization between the players, whether they be holding a rock, pushing around a rock, turning on something or turning off something, or rotating. Even that seems to be a little bit out of sync as well. Anyway, we're going to start running down this puzzle here whilst I talk. But I know these things will be fixed and addressed in the future, so I'm just stating the current state right now, and I am acknowledging that the game is still in alpha state, so that you guys don't need to go on about that to me. Let me get rid of those lights, because the lights are the most taxing thing. These lights here and the other lights, that is what drops your FPS down a lot. The amount of blocks do as well, it's just lights affect a little bit more, I think, because of the shadows. So yeah, optimization is definitely a thing I'd like to see implemented quite soon, simply because a lot of people don't have these high-end PCs. So what was the next thing I was talking about? Multiplayer. Multiplayer is something that synchronization needs to be worked on, but I know that is something that they are already working on, which is good because I've been in contact with them here and there, so I kind of know what they are and aren't working on. God damn, I failed that jump. Anyways, that's it for the present state of the game. Let me know what you guys think about how the game is right now for you guys, whether it's unacceptable at how it plays, or whether you guys like how the game functions right now. I mean, I like how it functions, it's just it needs to be optimized a lot better. I'm getting 40 FPS now just because I turned that light on. Anyways, now I'm going to talk about the features I'd like to see implemented in Space and Nids, and there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of things I've been thinking about, because like I said, I put over 100 hours into this game, so I have a few things I'd like to see being put into this game, and I've actually wrote them down so I don't forget any of them. First things first is AI, or NPCs, or basically computer-controlled players, or bandits, or pirates, or whatever role that they're going to play in this game. I would like to see them at some point. Now, I'm bringing this up because it was mentioned a while ago in an interview that somebody had with the developers that they weren't going to implement AI, and this caused a lot of confusion between people. Well, not so much confusion, actually a lot of rage between consumers and the developers, or consumers towards the developers, about there not being any AI, so there wouldn't be any real end game to go towards. Survival would just be you surviving the elements, not surviving against any sort of AI opponent. And to be honest, like, I don't mind that there won't be any AI, because like I said, I've already got my money's worth out of the game. And even with that said, I do think that the game can stand on its own without NPCs. But with that being said, I would also like to see NPCs at some point implemented in the game, whether it be simply merchants, or more complicated AI, such as bandits or pirates that would attack you and your crew whilst you build ships. Now, moving on from that, oxygen is another thing, and pressurization is another thing I'd like to see in this game. And the way I would see that working is through the doors. I could easily understand. You'd have maybe an oxygen generator that would pump oxygen through the facility, as long as it was closed off, as long as there wasn't any like holes in the wall. Like, oh, where's that lead? That leads outside. Okay, I was a bit confused why there was a wall there. Yeah, so if there was an air leak like this, your oxygen would be pumping out of that, and there would be no oxygen left in here. At least there wouldn't be much of it, would be draining out rather quickly. So, like I said, oxygen would be something I would really like to see, because I feel it would add a lot more survivability to the game. You'd have to build a station whilst your oxygen drains down, and get oxygen pumping as quick as you can before your own oxygen runs out, and then having to keep an eye on your oxygen levels, and the pressurization of your station would be something I think would be quite a nice thing to actually just keep an eye on. With that being said, planets would be another thing I'd like to see. Now, there is asteroids right now. There is a lot of asteroids, and because this game is solely based around, or this game is really based around engineering and mining, I don't think a lot of people realize that when I say that as well. The game is space engineers, it's not space exploration or anything like that. It's engineering. It's focused simply on the building and the repairing of spaceships, basically. But people seem to think it's a lot more than that, and I admit I'd like to see it a lot more than that, but people need to realize it's actually called engineers for a reason. And with that being said, I would like to see some sort of planets and atmosphere in the future, where we can maybe go down to a planet and explore it, and maybe get some more rarer resources on the surface of a planet, or even in the depths of a planet. And the gravity there would be a really nice thing that I'd like to see. Now, with the AI, going back to that, I would like to see some sort of currency in the game, maybe some sort of purchasable in-game sort of system where you can negotiate with AI, whether it be for food, supplies, or anything of those sorts. I think that would be a really nice thing to see. It's not really one of the things on the top of my list that I'd like to see, but it's something that I find would be interesting. And even in between players, you could have a currency sort of system where you guys can barter resources or gold, for example. Pardon me, I had something in my throat other than my tongue. Bad joke. Okay. What else was I going to say? Yes, next thing, action groups. Now, I've mentioned this quite a few times before, and what I mean by action groups is assigning a bunch of actions or commands to a certain key in the game, much like a macro would, for example. So let me just get a small ship here. Let me get... Where's the cockpit? I'll bring this down here as well. So we kind of already have a sort of system, at least if you want to talk about really bare bones style, and that is the way the thrusters work. So for example, all the thrusters on the left here would be activated by my D key, and all the thrusters on this side here would be activated by the A key. Now that is a pretty simple thing because a lot of games have movement like that. Now the way I'm trying to explain this would be simply, say I only wanted this thruster and this thruster to activate when I press a certain key. So when I'm in the ship, for example, if I press, well, I guess G or K, I think K would be one of the better ones. So you have a tab over here, or a side of the screen, that says action groups, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say I wanted to drag across small thruster right and the second small thruster right to the first action group. Now that would create the action group 1. When I go to this screen, you would have all your action groups here, and I can just drag down action group 1 to the toolbar. So whenever I press the assigned key, it would only activate what's inside the action group. So this can work for lights and only activating certain weapons. So say if you have a whole bunch of rockets on the left of the ship and a whole bunch on the right of the ship, you could have action group 2 be assigned to the left rockets and action group 3 be assigned to the right rockets. So that's something I would like to see sometime in the future, just so we could better organize things. And I guess that leads on to the next thing of wiring and sort of button system. And the way I think of that working is, instead of having a terminal that you'd have to access like a cockpit, well, I call it a terminal, but it's basically a cockpit. Instead of having to access a cockpit to activate certain things, you could have a button or a simple terminal on a wall that can only have 1 or 2 processors connected to it, and you connect that through a wiring sort of tool that you can then connect. Say for example, if I had a just say there's a wall here and this has a button on it, and I put the button down. Do I even have anything that would be... I guess I could put a light down. No, not a turret. I want a light. There we go. Oh, it's blue. Don't know why it's blue. Oh, it just looked blue. So say this was a button here, and I had a sort of wiring tool. Say this is my wiring tool, even though you can't... Why can't you see it? I'm just doing an example here, game. Okay, so this is a wiring tool. It's pretty weird wiring tool. Now, say I put this on the wall here, and I click on it to connect one wire to it, and then I click over here on the gravity generator. Now, what this does for me is that every single time I click on this button, it will turn off and on this gravity generator, much like a door would have its button that activates the door. So this would be a sole purpose, like single purpose only sort of thing. Or you can have it assigned to like multiple things, but it would only be able to toggle them on or off, or maybe some sort of slightly more advanced function, but it wouldn't be able to access other parts of the ship. It would just be solely for what it's connected to. I think that would be a nice thing to see in the game at some point as well. Now, I've heard this next thing being mentioned quite a lot, and that is gravity affected blocks. Now, we have seen that stones and players and items for your inventory are affected by gravity. And that's cool, because gravity's the really cool thing. Did I even drop that? Drop it. There we go. Gravity. Perfect, that's how it works. But ships and, well, small ships and large ships are not affected by gravity in the slightest, unless you do the thing that I started doing, which is where you use stones. And you connect stones through landing gears, and then the ship is suddenly affected by gravity. At least the stone is pulling the ship down through the gravity. And I would like to see some sort of block that, say... No, what block should I use? I don't think I have any special blocks. Okay, say this is a gravity block. You put that on your ship. Now, whatever the ship that this is connected to is now affected by gravity, at least in some way. So, for planets, that would make sense. For stations, I guess you can make it so you can land. Or I guess it would go kind of side and side with maybe some sort of wheels, I guess. So that way you can actually have your ship land down on here and actually run around or drive around and then take off, I guess, much like a plane would. So that, I guess that's the purpose of the gravity affected blocks, and I think that would be a nice thing to see as well. Another thing to do with ships would be shields, or some sort of more advanced functionality for ships other than just weapons, and I guess it's going into a more sci-fi element instead of a more realistic element. But I think it would be kind of nice to see some sort of shields, or maybe antimatter, or some of those cooler things, maybe little nano drones or nanobots that would repair your ship. I think that make it quite an interesting little element to have, but make it so it's like really taxing on the power usage. You need a lot of power to actually keep the shields up. Other than that, there is one more thing I wanted to say, and that was warp drive. And I guess I can kind of see how that works, only if you'd have maybe planets and sort of checkpoint system in the game. Whereas if you know there's a planet like in that direction, maybe it's 100,000 meters away or something, 100,000 kilometers away, you would activate your warp drive in that direction, and it would take you there at a lot faster speeds than what the game currently achieves. Because right now, if you fly a ship, I didn't even put about a generator on that. Right now your ships are limited to about 104 meters per second, which isn't great, but that is the max speed currently that we can get. As you guys can see, 104.7. So it would be nice to have some sort of warp drive that can bypass that, at least temporarily, and allow the ships to go at a higher speed just to get to their objective really quite quickly. Anyways, I think I've rambled on long. Oh, did I bump you? Oh, goodbye. Yeah, I think I've rambled on long enough about all my ideas or things I'd like to see in the game. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys want to see implemented into this game, and what you guys think about the things I suggested. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys for watching.